Word.
Okay.
No one's going to hear about the Japanese economic system now.
It
sounds more
would be
boring when I say it
interesting.
that way.
I know that's right. It was a far more interesting conversation than that betrays.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's when you hit the record. So let's see. Spur of the moment, bringing up
Do
my
you
notes.
need me to do a local?
Um, it
Would you
doesn't
prefer
hurt.
it? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I rarely need them, but I have once or twice. So
Oh, I understand. So let me go ahead and do that for you.
usually when the internet glitches out or something. Since I've been using a newer laptop, it helps. I was using one that just it got too old and it like was going nuts eventually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I need a new laptop too. Okay, I'm going, hold on. I'm starting the audio track now.
Okay. Now this is still not the show, but I am curious. I'm wanted to powwow with you on how to do the prologue because this one's weird because it has the mirroring opening and closing narrations.
Sure.
And of course, I
I
asked
mean,
the
I
guests
think
to
we
do
should do
this.
both at the end. I think I should do one at the beginning and then one at the end. I think
Okay.
that's right.
We'll do it like the episode then. That's fine. Because what
Yeah.
was it? Oh, next week's I already recorded next week was Owl Creek Incident, the other one I offered you, and that one's weird
Yeah.
because the opening is like the ending of this, where Rod is just talking about the film coming from France, blah blah. This is the first time we did this on a Twilight Zone, and then the closing narration is more like the regular opening, but it spoils the show because it's at the end. So it was kind of a weird one, and this one's kind of a
Oh,
weird one. So they're just
it is weird. It is, but it makes sense because of what that episode's about. But yeah, let's do it at the end and you just prompt me when you're ready for me to do it for both times.
Okay. Maybe I'll have you do it like right before I get into those questions at the end. That might be the best place.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Okay, give me a 5 second gap and then I will start the show. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast, where we ride black and white horses directly into the heart of the Twilight Zone. As always, this is Matt here. Coming back, it's Jessica Lynn Verdi. How are you?
I'm so good and I'm happy to be here.
All right. Yeah. So, as I know you're not as familiar with the show, which is great for guests because I have some people that come in and they have the Twilight Zone marathon perpetually playing in their head. And
Sure.
that can be interesting. I mean, people who know way more than me about the show. And then it's fun to have people kind of dropping in and checking out. I think everyone knows it's culturally, but they don't know these episodes so well. So,
Yeah, not at all. I know though that people that are much more intense about Twilight Zone can go, well, this episode's like that, and then this show does it. Like what's interesting about these Twilight Zone episodes and the ones I've had the pleasure of doing, I could see similar themes in TV episodes 20 years down the road. It does set the foundation for a lot of TV, I think, in the future or storytelling.
yeah, as we found, well, I found because I'm going through every episode and I'm almost finished. So I guess I am becoming an expert on this now. But
Sure.
especially season five, there's so many things where it's like, well, where does this go in the future? Where have we already seen this? Like,
Mm,
this is, I assume people have already seen this is kind of one of our time loop episodes, time travel,
yeah.
time loop episodes. We've had the suspended animation ones, things like that. So. I think this is a fun iteration though. There are some where it's like, okay, we've been there, done that. This feels a little different, which is
Yeah,
nice.
this did not feel like I've seen this story before told in this particular way. And I have to tell you, it was also a particularly poignant episode. So I um I actually liked it more than I anticipated I would.
And I think it does sit with you after you've seen it. I mean, anyone can start, well, anyone that's not 18 anymore is going to start thinking about this. Like, geez, what if I didn't counter my younger self? Would I drive myself away? Would I scream at myself like that? That was a interesting call, but
Blood curdling scream. I didn't even know that the first word that the for lack of a better word, the black horse rider um was screaming, and I didn't even realize. I thought it was just some blood curdling. Ah! It was
going by the
terrible.
subtitles, the first one did seem to just be a blood-curdling
That's
scream.
all. I think it's what it said, right? Because then when we repeated the beat, it did say "and," but it was terrible.
And I
And
think
I give it to this actress because they needed to find someone who could not only ride a horse adeptly, but act. Not that that's like a tall order, but like you had to do both for this role. And I felt like she did both pretty well. Obviously, she was a good writer and she wasn't a bad actress. So I give her a lot of credit.
I guess speaking of the actress, I'll do a little bit of tw Twilight. Do a little bit of trivia on this Twilight Zone, and
Great.
well, yeah. Re I looked in the wrong
That is
place.
life. That is life.
I looked at line three, not line one. Okay. Original air date was February 21st, 1964. This is the fourth and final episode of The Twilight Zone, directed by Elliot Silverstein. Outside of the zone, he was best known for feature films like Cat Ballou and The Car. Regular Twilight Zone scribe Richard Matheson is on deck for the teleplay. Ann Henderson was Diane Hyland. She got into the TV guest circuit in the 60s, starting with Robert Montgomery Presents. Unfortunately, she died at the tragically young age of 41, which is
Whoa.
especially depressing. She had posthumously won an Emmy for her role in The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, and she had just started as a regular with Dick Van Patten on the show Eight is Enough, in which she has 5 episodes, and then they have to write the character out because I believe that show ran for several years. So,
That's
um,
crazy.
yeah, it was kind of like in the 80s they had the show Valerie, and then I think in that case the star just left, and they're like, "Oh, the mom and the family died, and now it's the Hogan family," you know. But it's more
Wow.
depressing when the actress doesn't just leave. So
That is wild. Yeah, poor thing. Now I will say, um, she looked so old as the 43-year-old version of herself. I doubt that that's what she looked like when she died. That they
you,
really,
you can
really
find
made her look
photos. She
bad.
she looked better
I
at age
imagine.
41. Yes.
I know that they
Um,
really wanted to distinguish her between the younger and older versions of herself, but I was like, damn, this woman is not doing well.
and yeah, unfortunately, that was just a cancer fatality. So,
Oh,
it's not like some weird Hollywood Babylon thing. It's just poor health. So, it's those things that
wow.
hit you.
Terrible.
Speaking of the word Hogan, which I brought in from another direction, Robert Hogan starred as Robert Blake, which is a character name that has not aged particularly well considering news in the past 20 years.
No, you're totally right. So I had a friend who worked at the place with the alleged event of Rod, well, not alleged event, I guess he was convicted, where he murdered his wife at Vitello's. And they have since, you know, redecorated the restaurant, but people still ask to sit in the booth, which is so morbid.
There's a lot of true crime fans out there, you know?
I know, I know, I know. I worked down the street from Vitello's. It was fine, a fine restaurant for
And
what
that
it's
makes
worth.
his scene in David Lynch's Lost Highway like twice as disturbing if you've ever seen that.
I
So,
haven't.
oh, it
Oh,
before that actor was notorious. It was already an extremely creepy scene. It's the
oh
telephone scene, if
no.
anyone knows what I'm talking about. But now with the actor there, you're like, "Oh my God, it's so
Oh
weird."
no. Yeah, that aging poorly in more ways than one. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Anyway, we're talking about Robert Hogan.
Uh-huh.
Hogan was basically a network soap opera guy. You name it, he was probably in it, except for the guiding light. I did not see his credit on the guiding
Okay.
light.
Okay.
Now, if his name makes you think of Hogan's Heroes, you are not being snarky. That series creator, Bernard Fain, was a close friend and straight up used Robert Hogan's name for the title character of the show. So,
There you go. That's
named
very
after him.
cool. I love that. Mike and I, well, actually, Mike wasn't with me when we met him, but the first time we went to Seth MacFarlane's Christmas party, we met, um, I can't remember his first name, but the cousin of Seth MacFarlane, who Seth named his main character after. Basically, the last name is Mercer, and he took that name. Seth did, and he's like, "Hey, he took the name from me, man." So yeah, it's nice to be the namesake
Yeah,
sometimes.
you get some real bragging rights in that case,
That's
don't you?
exactly right. That's exactly right.
David Mitchell was played by Roger Davis. He was another soap opera guy, but that career was laser focused on Dark Shadows. If you name another soap opera, it does not seem he was in that one. It's all about Dark Shadows, a show
Oh,
which some people get very deep into. I have not seen. I have not even seen the Johnny Depp movie, but
oh yeah, I know. I actually the name not is not even ringing a bell.
it was a very long running supernatural soap opera from like maybe the
Oh,
late 60s to somewhere in the 80s. I'm not sure. Again, not a fan, but there's thousands of episodes of Barnabas somebody. Yeah.
I'll have to
Again,
check it
not a fan, but
out.
there's a giant fandom based on that. So it's kind of like,
Wow.
gothic romance horror is kind of the thing they settled on for that show.
Weird. Okay, I'll check it out.
What do we got? Philip Ober was Mr. Henderson. He showed up in a few films like From Here to Eternity and North by Northwest. So it seems he was basically, this is like near the end of his career where he's just showing up on TV, going to Burbank, doing a few days, right?
Yes, exactly. That
Which,
makes a lot of sense.
good
Yeah,
work if you can get it, right?
that's right.
And finally, Mrs. Henderson was played by Marcia Hunt. She was on the blacklist of Hollywood film studio executives in the 1950s. Sorry, excuse me. She was blacklisted by Hollywood film
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
studio
No, it's
executives
very
before
funny
she's
because
an
you made
actor.
it sound like it was the episode or like in the TV show, but I realized what you meant. That's crazy.
Yeah, I realized as I was saying it that she was not an executive. Yeah, so she's in many films for like westerns and stuff from the 30s to about 1952.
Wow.
Uh, Born to the West with John Wayne, Cry Havoc with Margaret Sullivan and Joan Blondell, and then after 1952, she doesn't get to do much for several years. Actually,
Wow.
one of her later credits is another blacklisted guy, Dalton Trumbo's Johnny Got His Gun. Dalton Trumbo being the screenwriter famous for writing in his bathtub. So they made it out of the blacklist eventually.
Okay.
It's a weird thing. It's one of those Hollywood lore things
Yeah,
that
I
crops up with
understand.
people into
It feels very what's that writer that Johnny
Truman
Depp.
Capote's weird.
Well, that's
Oh, oh,
very
oh,
funny.
oh, oh! I Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Oh my God! I should. This is
I
the
know.
name
It's not.
always. This is actually going to drive me insane because I have
I'm so sorry.
obsessed with him before. Here we go.
I know.
Fear
Right. We all were.
and love. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, I have to do the
What
on
is his
Hunter
name?
Thompson.
Hunter
Jeez.
Hunter S. Thompson. It's the middle
Yes.
name that always throws me off because I'm expecting a full name. Anyway, it's
Right.
very Hunter-esque, S.
There
Thompson-esque.
we go. Yes, for sure. I'm like, I've read 5 books by the guy. How can I not
Right.
recall his
Right.
name?
No,
But
because for some reason it just was out of left field for sure.
so this we were talking before the proper show that this is a very strange one with the prologue and final narration kind of being weird mirror images. So at the moment, let's go for the prologue, which if
Okay. I have it actually.
oh you have it, good. Then I will
Yeah,
not
I
put it in
pulled it
the
up.
chat. Okay.
Up. All right, my best Rod Serling. This is the face of terror. Sorry, I do this every time. Um, this is the face of terror. Anne Marie Henderson, 18 years of age, her young existence suddenly marred by a savage and wholly unanticipated pursuit by a strange, nightmarish figure of a woman in black who has appeared as if from nowhere, and now at driving gallop chases the terrified girl across the countryside as if she means to ride her down and kill her. And then suddenly and inexplicably stops to watch in malignant silence as her prey takes flight. Miss Henderson has no idea whatever as to the motive for this pursuit. Worse, not the vaguest notion regarding the identity of her pursuer. Soon enough, she will be given the solution to this twofold mystery, but in a manner far beyond her present capacity to understand, a manner enigmatically bizarre in terms of time and space, which is to say, an answer from the Twilight Zone. Not too
There
bad.
you go. Not too
Not too
bad.
bad.
Last week, our our usual one of our Rod Serling champions was thrown off his game because he was trying to do it while his dog was licking him in the face or something. So that was
Oh,
kind of fun.
that's unusual. Yeah, we speaking of like unusual, one of the most recent episodes Mike Richards and I did for the Orville was with Andre Bormanis, who worked on the Orville, but also worked on Voyager and Enterprise and all that. Genius dude. Midway through, he goes, we'll need to pause because my cat has returned with a bird in its mouth and had to clean up the dead bird. So
No, no. In our
that
case, the dog just hopped in the lap. We did not hit pause, and the prologue was done with the dog like in his face. So
beautiful,
exciting.
beautiful, beautiful. Love those pet cameos for sure.
Now this episode is new to me, so my first note. Maybe this is the 2025 point of view. I'm just like, damn one percenters.
Wow, isn't that funny? Sure. Yeah, I think that's a fair takeaway. Yes, this person had someone like holding the horse for her whenever she's ready to, like, and the person answering the door, and I just appreciated the subversion. I would have thought, based off of previous stories like this, the right choice was the spurned lover here. I actually really appreciated that the bad choice, quote unquote, or the choice that she regrets having made, is the is the boyfriend, basically, that she left in order to technically marry the guy that she doesn't end up marrying.
Yeah, I guess this is a diatribe against going with your high school sweetheart or whatnot.
It might be that. I will say, she talks about how she was spoiled and given all these things, and daddy, whatever daddy wants. If you can hear the what sounds like a kettlebell, it's my radiators turning on right now. Um, but she's like railing against her daddy when she's 43 and she's drinking. This is choice she made, and she got what she wanted, and she's completely judging her father. And so this is just not someone who knows how to take personal responsibility. It's very interesting.
I am wondering, and this is coming from having watched a bunch of the show, there do seem to be a lot of subtle Back to the Future references from the time travel episodes. Like in the first season, we have Walking Distance, where the guy walks into his past, and the character's name is Marty. Um,
Oh, okay. That's funny.
Here, when we finally spend some real time uh with the 43-year-old version of Anne, uh she that kind of bitterness and just how she's spitting out and looks run down very much reminds me of Lorraine in the 1985 Biff's Pleasure Palace, Back to the
Yes.
Future. I mean, she hasn't had work
Yes.
done like that one, but just the bile, and then the how innocent 1955 Lorraine is versus 43, and the same in here. Like she doesn't seem like a great actress when you're seeing the 18 version of her, because I guess she is supposed to be kind of ditzy. And then once you see the 43-year-old version, you're like, oh, okay, she's a bit on fire.
That's exactly right. That's a really good pull. What 20 some odd years can do to ruin someone's quote unquote innocence, or like, joy in life. I actually did think the way she came in exhausted after having been attempted to be ridden down by the woman in black. I thought that was really good, but it was also like a little too much. It's like, girl, just catch your breath and then tell everyone what happened. But I was trying to imagine, you would be scared, you'd be like exhausted from riding your horse like that. And I thought she played that moment pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, my note is that was a little strong. Like they're really going for the hysterical woman thing, which if this episode, like obviously that's the writing here. It's got the ace of its sleeve. Like, yeah, this may be a little bit too much, but it's for contrast. We're gonna get to that later. Just wait 5 minutes.
Totally. Yeah. I think you're right. It was like, all right, we needed one less second of this event, but that's exactly what it was for sure.
Um, I do think they coded Bob a bit too much, Robert, whatever you want to call him. Like in every scene, he's just wearing like the worst bow tie. Like, I mean, that's just a visual cue to not like this guy. Anyone who just casually rocks a bow tie later when it's like the engagement party or whatever, and he's wearing like a white tux or that's fine. But just hanging around the house in a bow tie. I mean, hey, I'm hanging around the house wearing a dress shirt and a jacket because I'm going to work after this, but I'm not wearing a bow tie. I'm not even wearing a tie.
So you're saying you're not a fan of Matt Smith's Doctor Who? He was
Well,
a bow tie guy. I
you
mean,
got
come
to
on.
match it with a fez. You match it with a
Okay,
fez,
all
maybe.
right. You're
Okay.
totally right. Well, I think just from the we probably have seen this story a million times, and we've seen it a million times up to this point. We assume that he's the bad guy here, that's forcing her to get married, that, doing daddy's will and all that. He's probably not such a bad guy. In fact, he seems like such a nice guy when they're at the engagement party. Um, it kind of makes me think, you pointing out the bow tie, when we see Mr. Darcy for the first time in Joseph Wright's 2005 Pride and Prejudice. He's very buttoned up. His cravat is very tight. He's very like uncomfortable. But as you see him more, everything loosens up at his neck and kind of gets softer. because at the first blow, you're supposed to think this guy is a pompous prick, but as you get to know him, you're like, oh, he's just uncomfortable and he has a softer side. So I think they were doing, like you said, everything they could to make him look like the bad choice here.
Then David shows up still looking like a preppy, and here's some more like 2025 vision. When they show future David, I'm like, hey, he's much hotter now. I mean, he's a total, prick, of course. He's like, respect me, all that crap. But I'm like,
He did
hey, now
not
he's
look
got
hot at all. They
what? He got
scraggly
the
beard.
tousled hair. He's got the, I don't know. He looked more rugged. I thought that was
I think
better
we're
than.
learning what kind of man you're attracted to, which is
That's right.
awesome. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
put
No,
a
it
little
was the
rough edge on
beard.
him.
The beard was a problem for me. Like he looked so scary. And again, it was like the makeup for both of them. Actually, the mom, they made her look classy older. But Anne looked like a truck hitter, and the boyfriend, that's what I was a little confused too. I was like, well, why is this guy the bad guy? Because he does look like he's coming from money. He didn't look like he was like some stable hand that she shouldn't have fallen in love with. Why was he so detested that the father brought out a gun to get him out of the house? You know what I mean?
He wasn't serious about the gun though. There were like three instances where he really could have pulled the trigger if he
I
would.
couldn't agree with you more, but just to bring out that as a threat is like crazy. Also, if she didn't marry the man that her father wanted her to marry, why did she still get to live in the house? Why did the father still like not disown her? Like things still went in her favor. It's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I guess them as a couple are just a toxic because they're horrible towards each other. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like either of them seem to be on the right side of domestic bliss and at age 43 or whatever. But yeah,
He sort of looked like he was drunk when he like tried to wave her down outside the I just think he was a drunk early on.
oh, at age 18, he was
Yeah,
already he
I
might
do
have been
think
he
so.
just cleaned up better at that point because he combed his hair and he had no tie, of course. But he still
No,
looked
he
super
did not.
preppy.
He did look preppy. I couldn't agree with you more. He really did.
I mean, hey, when I was in high school, just to look a little different, I'd sometimes show up like looking a little preppy. I'd show up with, button-down shirt and khaki pants because I didn't want to wear jeans and a t-shirt anymore.
Oh, cool. I did the in senior year I did the fake glasses. Like they had frames but they weren't prescription, but I was like originating the hipster look. I thought I was pretty cool. It's not cool, but I thought I was cool.
No, I did rock the fake glasses a little bit because my daughter, actually, she doesn't wear glasses so much anymore. She's 15, but when she was 3, she got glasses, and I was like wearing like they're like the lightest tone sunglasses, I guess. So they're basically fake glasses.
Cute.
Wearing those around for a bit, but
Making her feel comfy in her glasses.
right, because no one else in the house wears glasses full time. So, and actually,
Sweet.
she doesn't now. I mean, when she got them, they're like, might get better, and I guess it did. So,
Yeah, that's
studying or
great.
whatever you grab them, but yeah, my eyes seem to be working pretty well still at this age. So interesting.
I keep on hearing at 40 it changes. I'm not looking forward to that because my eyes are great still. So I'm just holding on to it as long as I can.
Well, 45, and I can still read signs pretty far away. So
There you go. See, I
yeah.
feel good. I feel positive about our future Twilight Zone.
I had some other old things going, but it's not that. So
Right, right. There you go. We're doing okay. What I thought like the takeaway I ultimately had, or I guess what I'm trying to say is, as opposed to like having a definitive thought, is I just like the idea that you can't change it, but that your choices can haunt you like crazy.
yeah, that's what makes this interesting is like kind of a time loop, and it's one that's immutable, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Most time loop stories there can be some kind of change. Again, if
Right.
you have a Star Trek time loop, of course they have to get out of it. They need to have an episode next week. So,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
this one, on other podcasts, I talk about the existential dread of it all, and this one definitely has more because nothing ever changes. She is 18. She sees the ghoul of herself. She becomes that ghoul. She sees the young version of herself, and time moves on. Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a not. Well, is it a free will world? I guess she has free will, but she only gets one chance to make that decision.
Well, I guess like we all do. I think you feel bad for them being caught in this time loop. But I think it's more It's really is a message for us watching this person suffering through this. A, make the best choice you think you can make. And it's stupid that her entire life is dictated by men, but in that era, it can be. And it was for many a woman. My grandmother's whole life is different because of a man. My mother's whole life is different from a man because of a man. And my one of my goals has been to be independent and then welcome a man in my life. But you can change things. And this woman instead is blaming everyone for this problem. So I guess like the takeaway I would have is like, do your best to make the best choices possible or right the ship if you realize you've made a mistake. But don't live in regret or anxiety of the future. Like that is really, it really does say that in 23 minutes, I think, for me.
Right. I mean, well, there's the living in the moment. So, at age 18, she's 18, isn't she? She's making 18-year-old decisions and
All I would have gone for that dude in a heartbeat. like I just would have gone for the one that I loved. Why would I have think that made the safe choice? I totally can't blame her for what she did at all.
what is interesting culturally how marrying for love is really only a concept like 200 years old. I mean, I'm sure it's
I
happened throughout
know.
time, but this is still like, I mean, I don't know how old their money is. They're clear, well, because of filming, I'm going to say they're clearly in California, but I guess they could be East Coasters according to the script or whatever. But, I'm thinking if they're old money, there's still might be a great pressure, like we set up, not an arranged marriage, just pressure to do a marriage, which is almost the same thing because you look into our culture, oh, arranged marriage, that's horrible, but daddy pressuring you, that's just what happens.
It's yeah, I think you're right. It was the socially acceptable version of arranged marriage at this point. I believe it changed significantly right before the industrial era, where all of a sudden you could move castes in, especially in America, where also like just because you were pretty, maybe a guy could marry you even if you weren't in his particular class. Um, but yes, you go back as early as Jane Austen again to go there. Like she depicted the many different reasons why a woman, an upper class woman would get married, and love was not many of the reasons.
I mean, even now in like political spheres, there's still a lot of king and queen making. So I'm sure there's a lot of like get these people together, get these families together, that sort of thing.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, we need to unite our little cities in Chicago somehow.
Exactly. So yeah, but that is kind of a weird thing to think of, and especially watching a version of it from 60 years ago, where I mean, the flavors changed a lot, I guess. So it feels
Sure.
anachronistic, but it's still probably, is a regular thing in some
I
respects.
can believe it happens. I can believe someone, let's just say, for lack of a better politically um, polarizing figure, someone like Donald Trump doesn't let his daughter marry specific people, if it's not within the sphere of what he thinks is acceptable. And I'm sure he has some say in who they're with. I'm sure.
And yeah, and honestly, anyone at that level of power is probably going to be worried if their daughter brings some ruffian in. I mean,
That's exactly right. Yep. I'm sure they get vetted and detectived. And so there is, like, yeah, at a certain level, I'm sure there is some delegation of who you can and cannot marry.
I
I'm
do
sure.
remember when we had younger presidents, like with Sonny Bush and Obama, there would be news stories about like what the kids or what the daughters are up to and the insane like Secret Service dating and such.
Totally. There was a whole movie about it. I think it was Mandy Moore where it was like trying to date the president's daughter. No one publicized the Clinton girls more than anybody. It's like really that's a really weird voyeur thing too. But anyway,
We didn't
yeah.
like it, so we started electing people in their, 75 plus.
Yo,
Don't
I'm
have
not.
to worry about now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's exactly. Well, I mean, Barron, I'm sure is going to have a.
Oh yeah, they've kept the press like pretty far out of his face. Like I was actually checking because they had a picture on the inauguration. Oh yeah, that guy did grow up. And I looked at Wiki. And I was like, oh, you can't even click on his name on Wiki.
I didn't realize that.
He does not have a Wiki article, so just listed as a child
That's
of.
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, he really can grow up to be whoever he wants then if he doesn't have a paper trail. Good
No,
for him.
well, he doesn't a wiki trail at least.
No,
Um,
I understand. I got it.
when 43-year-old David is going on about respect, by the way, I was sitting there thinking, this is why Otis Redding doing respect didn't take. 'Cause he was like, the woman stole the song from me. I mean, he was joking. He was trying to be funny about it. Because, of course, Aretha Franklin made a hit because coming out of Otis Redding, it sounds great, but it sounds wrong. Coming out of Aretha Franklin, it sounds great, you know?
Oh my, yeah, context is everything. Oh yeah, no, it was nothing more, no, it was nothing but abusive coming from this character's mouth, coming from a dude. You better respect me. And yeah. And how could you? He's a drunk and he looks like crap, not according to you, which is fine.
Right.
And he's run the house into ruin. It is a very strange, the 23 minutes is a little too short to understand what the downfall of this guy was, what, like how he went from just purely in love with her to just trash. But it was icky, and it was machismo, weird machismo, and false ego. It was really strange.
I guess that's a nice, on an anthology 23-minute, that's a fun place to take a shortcut because
Sure.
the viewer now has to fill that in, and it doesn't really matter how they fill it in. There's like 100 different ways you can fill that in, you know?
You're
Um,
totally right. I can see it. How it actually isn't a huge stretch, but I still want to be like, what the heck happened to this guy? What happened? And you're right, but there is a way we can fill it. We can fill it in a lot of different ways.
I mean, I think we all know a couple, or maybe when we but liked both of them, and it's just like, you just watch it kind of crash and burn.
Well, I guess my point more than anything is that, like, usually the problems are there from the onset. There's a reason why people call them red flags. Usually the first couple things that you notice about a potential partner are the things that break you up, or are the things you consistently fight about. So these things had to be there, which is why I thought it was alcoholism. And then they both said that two minds, one issue, whatever he said. Basically, they're both suffering from alcoholism. And that's why I feel like he was kind of wobbly when, so they were saying it without saying it. And just like to reiterate, I think the problems had to be there. They didn't explicitly say what they were when they were 18.
Right. He's got too much edge. He's banging on the door at age 18. That's the same
Yeah,
behavior
that's a
that's going to
good
have him
point.
screaming at her. And I guess she's shown to be more like a nice, you know, pure 18-year-old. But yeah, 43, she's drunk driving horses. That's a really bad idea. Like when she comes in, I'm like, she might be drunk driving that horse. And then after, she definitely was because she just
She
drank a half a
definitely
bottle of
was.
scotch.
You're totally drunk driving that horse is such a funny statement, but you're totally right. That's exactly what was happening. That's
I wonder
so
if,
funny.
wonder if there's a law against that in 1964.
I mean, there's got to be one now,
I'm sure
because,
there's one now.
but that's a very good question. I like that. Where's the fact check on that, Matt?
It's only been the past few years where Japan is finally like, oh yeah, you should not be drunk driving bicycles either. Go out on a
My
Saturday
brother got
night.
a ticket for drunk. He was drunk. He was driving the bicycle. I don't know if he got a ticket. He definitely didn't get DUI, but he got like a warning because he was fine. But I'm totally misremembering it, but he did get pulled over on a bike because he was like just swerving, but like having a good time. The guy just didn't like that he was like whoop whoop whoop, like having a good time. But he
And the
thought he was
time
under
of
the
day
influence.
too. Yeah.
Well, it was at night, to be fair,
Okay.
but he was having a good time. He was in Chatsworth, which is a nice city. He got no problems, and then the officer just wanted to do was bored, I guess.
Harshness buzz.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Um, did you have any other big takes you wanted to throw on this episode before we move on, observation wise?
Yeah, I think I said it, but I just really like that she actually wasn't able to change her choices. I think she was spoiled. I think the fact that she blamed her father for her choice is means that this was her problem. I don't have an answer as to why, if we apply real world potential on, like, okay, like I can say, you know, the lady in black seeing her younger self is her living with regret. But Anne at 18 seeing her older self, I don't know what that is. Is that anxiety? I just kind of like the yin and yang of that. I just thought this really encapsulated something that we all experience about major choices we've made in our life or are about to make. and the finality of those choices.
Well, in both cases, Rod, of course, says this is the face of terror. 18-year-old is she's having some straight up, well, the flight part of fight or flight because she assumes that the lady in black wants to kill her. That's what she comes straight down on, which I don't think's the case. I mean, maybe that blood curdling scream is because she did just down half a bottle of scotch and it's just coming out all wrong, like, oh, and then
Yeah,
like,
I just stop. I gotta stop you from the problem. You're gonna mess with it.
stop.
Don't marry him.
Exactly. So, I mean, she might have been a little more coherent if not for that.
That's really funny, and you're
I mean,
probably right.
yeah, she's still making mistakes at age 43 as well. Most of us do, to be honest. But
That's exactly right. That's exactly yeah. That's
um,
exactly right.
I guess I just have two thoughts before I start the questions. One, the scene that grabbed me the most, weirdly enough, is when the older version of her arrives home, because there was a minute where I could not figure out what's happening. I was wondering if she was about to walk in and find all the
Yeah.
18-year-old self and the parents, like she was still back in time, and that's when they go straight for no, this actually is her house, and this is well the present. The 18-year-old, it's set in 1939, so this is
Yes.
the present with the
It was, and she was like so overcome, but I didn't know if you were about to see her. You're totally right. It was like a very disorienting, but not in a terrible way moment for sure.
And of course, we have to ask how do you think 18-year-old you would respond to current
Oh,
you? I think
oh yeah.
18-year-old me would just be mildly confused. I don't think they'd be unimpressed, but they would. He lives in Japan. He takes a train to work. What? Huh?
That is so, yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, 18-year-old me would still be in LA. I would be really dumb. I'd be really sad at that point in my life. And if I were looking, well, literally. So I'm trying to think of this because it's pretty profound. A big event happened in my life this week. My father died on Tuesday. And so what would 38-year-old Jessica be yelling at 18-year-old Jessica for? I hope I would listen, is my point. I don't know that I have uh I think I'd freak out though. I definitely think I'd freak out or not trust what I saw. I think Anne, 18-year-old Anne, also didn't realize it was her.
No, not at all. She was like a crazy woman is screaming at me, which that did like it's pretty obvious, but when you first get a decent shot of the black rider, it is like, oh, she's old. Is that the same? And then you're okay, age makeup. But there is just a second where you kind of go with her and like, oh, who is that? That it looks kind of like her. Oh, and
Yeah.
it took me. I don't know if that makes me sound stupid, but it took me a second,
No, no, it doesn't. But I think I'm just trying to take into consideration. I think 18-year-old me would be like Anne and not recognize me because I'd be like running from this person. So I probably would have just tried to hit them with my car, at
or your
that point.
horse in that
Yeah.
case. But,
If I had a horse at
but
18.
I mean, I don't know. Would 18-year-old me be pissed off that I wasn't a rock star or something? I don't know.
It's very possible. I would have also had the same regret. I really would have. That's really funny.
Yeah, it's like, what? You're not a starlet by now? Um, well, we're all stars in our own fields.
That's true. Someone once talked to me about that. Like you're a celebrity within your own community, which I thought
Right.
that was a really lovely way to think about it.
I got a microphone and a few people listen. That's nice. So
It's pretty cool. Yep.
that's got something going on. So
Yep. That's exactly
I
right.
not too regretful. And hey, one of my first creative pursuits was Andrew, who shows up on a lot of these shows. We would just sit down a 80s tape recorder and try and make radio shows. I'm like, we're doing the same thing 35 years later.
That's so cool. That is such a cool coming to fruition with this. I think that's lovely. I think that's
So,
real cool.
so on one part, I definitely stayed the course because the thing I was doing at age 10, I'm kind of still doing it. So,
So cute. That's yeah, age 10-year-old you would be proud of you today.
yes, yes. I'm not sure about age 18, but age 10-year-old probably.
Sure.
Uh, well, let's do something a little off format. And if you could give us that closing narration now that we have discussed 43-year-old Anne.
Happily. This is the face of terror. Anne Marie Mitchell, 43 years of age, her desolate existence once more afflicted by the hope of altering her past mistake, a hope which is, unfortunately, doomed to disappoint. For warnings from the future past must be taken in the past Today may change tomorrow, but once today is gone, tomorrow can only look back in sorrow that the warning was ignored. Said warning, as of now, stamped not accepted and stored away in the dead file in the recording office of the Twilight Zone. I thought that was a very silly last sentence.
Yeah, I was saying there the recording office. They didn't mention that in the opening. So
Nope, they sure did not. They
the
sure did
opening
not.
is a matter enigmatically bizarre in terms of time and space, which sounds better.
Yes, yeah, totally.
I guess he was like, I can't say the same thing, completely the same thing twice. So,
No, but I do think it bookends it really nicely, and I liked it a lot.
yeah. Uh, I do have questions, of course. The
Okay.
first one being who in this episode travels in or through the Twilight Zone?
Oh, well, I mean, Anne.
Yeah, I think she's a given. It's hard to come up with a argument that Anne is not
Yeah,
experiencing it. She's describing her trip in the Twilight Zone, like in that mid scene where she's
yeah,
43.
yep.
But here's a few other questions. How about David or Mom? David is at least interfacing with the Twilight Zone because she does she talk? Yeah, how she's telling Mom and older David a little bit about what's going on, so they at least know something funny's
Older
happening.
David doesn't quite get it.
We doesn't care.
That's also right. But mom is trying to get it, and mom is experiencing her choices. And I don't know if mom deserved this nasty of a girl. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're interfacing with it, I think is right. I think that's right. I don't know about David so much. I think maybe David's the impetus for it. Maybe David just sucks.
Yeah, he's just a black hole of existence, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I won't name names, but my wife had some friends in the States and they ended up splitting up and the guy was kind of a black hole of existence and he's actually after that he remarried, had a kid and the Facebook is now filled with like the most like stomach churning saccharine photos of his new
Oh,
family and stuff. So yeah.
good for him. He turned it around, but yeah, that's just it. Some people, if they can't get from out from under their afflictions, addictions, and personality disorders, they can be a void of a human. It's a very sad thing.
Right. So I don't know. I guess there is a little thought about that guy. But yeah, it's like those little things when he's 18 have just become like, beyond toxic at age 43. So I guess that's what's going on there.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
The
Hmm.
deserved question I do want to put on Anne though, does she deserve her trip into the Twilight Zone?
Ooh, she's a little brat, so I don't care. She's one
Okay.
percenter. See you later. She made her choices, man, and she was blaming
Hmm.
everyone else for this.
Okay.
And you know what I mean? What do you think?
I agree that my
Okay.
first note's one percenter. Yet, I would say she doesn't deserve it because who deserves to have their mistakes metaphysically, thrown in their face
Ah,
with no chance to alter anything?
sure. I think because she's being a brat and she's blaming her father for all these things, then I think whether it's getting thrown in her face or not, it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter too much, but I guess it's like insult to injury. And I'm like,
Yes,
does she deserve the insult to injury? I'm like, I don't know.
that's
She
a fair
didn't
point.
she didn't kill anyone. Maybe she did when drunk driving on her horse. I don't know, but that's a
Jesus,
different
she might
episode.
have. And yeah, I'm definitely being a little bit more on the glib side of things, but we're supposed to believe she does deserve this. I think that's how they wanted us to view it.
Yeah, yeah, she deserves where her life has gone because she made the wrong choice, but having her nose like shoved into it does seem
Oh, yeah, I
rude.
don't know if she made the wrong choice. She made the choice that her heart told her was the right one. And so I can't blame her for that. I blame her for blaming other people for her choice. That's what I blame.
Okay, see, that's not the Twilight Zone. So I am with you that she made her regret is real and it's of her own making. But
Yes,
the supernatural aspect going on here does seem, no, nobody deserves that.
sure, sure. I don't
Well,
wish it on anybody.
okay, actually, the guy from Death's Head Revisited is about the concentration camp director who also has to relive his past. He deserves that because, again, there's victims involved. But as far as
Yeah.
and it seems that she is her own victim, and I'm not even David because he's too much of an aggressive prick, and mom is the one who doesn't deserve any of this.
She doesn't deserve any of this. I think she's just doing her best to be a nice mommy. She seemed like a nice mommy,
Right,
you know.
even at the present day, the 43-year-old kids. I mean,
That's exactly right.
she was still trying to be cool, and now just living this, like Virginia Woolf sort of house or something.
Totally. You're exactly right. I think I think the victim in this story is the mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She was trying to be nice the whole time. So okay, the mom does not deserve her almost
No,
trip into the Twilight Zone. I
that's
will give
right.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, the last question we do around here is where do you want to place this on the tripometer from a low of 0 to a high of 5?
Dude, this is a 5. I don't want this. I don't want to live in a world where this can happen. And it's pretty trippy, I think.
Okay, no, the full 5. That's cool. I wasn't thinking that myself.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I had gone like right down the middle at a 2.5.
Okay.
I think 43-year-old Anne riding around on a horse screaming at people is pretty trippy. Um,
Yeah,
the rest of it, I guess, like time loops for me. I mean, we're both Trekkies, so
sure.
I want a tripped out, TNG cause and effect time loop. Like that's
Sure.
my 5 on the tripometer. Um, but I'm very happy that you have found
I
the
just don't want this to happen, dude. You know what I mean? Like that. But I'm with you. Like we see, I love the cause and effect stuff. I really do. There's nothing sadder than the one where Kirk falls in love with the woman who has to die, and like it's amazing those kind of stories.
oh
This
the
one is
fixed
not.
time, yeah.
Yes, I mean, or I know it's not quite a loop, but going back in time has its consequences, and for
It
here,
fits.
it doesn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the closed loop situation of this. So if again, I said on my other one of my other podcasts, we talk about like existential dread levels. My existential dread levels of this would be very high. Like on that one, it's sci-fi fun
That's
existential dread. I'm like,
fair.
this is 90% existential dread for me.
That's a fair.
A little bit fun. Now her riding around the horse screaming at people is fun. That's the 10% fun in that case.
Okay, I'll give it a 4. You convinced me. 4 on the
I
trichometer.
wasn't trying to talk you down.
I know you weren't but you made some really compelling arguments.
Okay.
And now I just really don't want this to happen. So that's where I'm at for that. So
Okay, but yeah, it depends on how you define trip, right? Like weird psychedelic imagery. Or this is tripping me out, and
right.
all of the definitions, of course, she's tripping. All of the definitions, of course, are valid. So
She's
that's
just hysterical in this one, I think.
yeah, she's tripping at the beginning when she gets home and is screaming and crying at the same time. So,
That's exactly right.
we will put the horse, I guess, back into the stable then.
I was thinking it like stop beating the dead horse, but yeah, yours is better.
Yeah, the horse isn't dead in this episode.
No, he's
That'd be more
certainly
for the
not.
Godfather.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well,
uh,
as always, I'm so grateful that you asked me to join. I thought this was a really interesting episode. I liked it more than I have others, and I don't think I need to watch it again. But I thought it had some really interesting, um, things to think about.
yeah, I'm curious how often this one makes its way into marathons. Again, I don't see the marathons. I'm in Japan, uh,
Right.
and I have the Blu-rays, so I can marathon myself. But yeah, just like how because it's this very Twilight Zone. It's that Richard Matheson's writing the script. It's very solid as a Twilight Zone episode. So I'm
Yeah.
curious
Totally.
how much this ends up in people's regular rotations.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll learn more about it now that we've seen it, but it's very good.
Uh, let's move on. And you said a bit about your podcasting world, but if you'd like to give one more shout out to that.
Sure, yeah. As there is crossover in our both of our worlds, you know me from Mission Log the Orville. Mike and I just did a 4 episode series celebrating a giveaway of the Orville diecast collectibles of the ships, which is pretty cool. Thanks to Master Replicas. I'm going to be taking on a larger role at Roddenberry soon, so stay tuned for what that means to one of your favorite places to find out about Star Trek stuff. But yeah, that's about it.
Alrighty. On this end, we're Time Enough podcast. Do rate and review nicely, hopefully. And I do a lot of podcasting. You can find all of that at podcastios.org or in a Patreon of the same name. So, okay,
You can be found.
let's take those horse tranquilizers.
We'll get real trippy.
Yes, I
Okie
will.
dokie.
I guess a horse tranquilizer would just knock you out for what, 3 days or something. I don't know.
You'd probably be out for a while.
Oh, sorry to hear about your father, by the way. That want to respond, but mid episode seemed a bit weird there. So
No, that's okay. And I wasn't sure I would mention it. That was my only hesitation with making scheduling early on. But I just thought it was an interesting episode that talks about like past and future regrets. Just kind of
yeah,
interesting.
and then thank you for showing up today. So you,
Yeah, of course, no, it worked out. And I also need to like re-enter society. So
mm,
I was able to take a really good amount of time off last week. And today I was like, let's go back into the world. So this was a nice way to do it. So thank you.
um, something very strange had happened. The almost the same thing happened with three guests at the same time. Speaking of Twilight Zones, the other two
With
I did delay. So
really,
actually, because Shara's going to come on, and she said her
yeah.
biological father died, which I don't quite know what that means, but she's at least she
Oh,
has legal stuff to do. So
wow. She hadn't shared that.
so we're delaying. She was going to do the Owl Creek, but we're pushing that to another episode. And
Wow.
Dorian, who does some of the episodes, um, she had to go back to the East Coast because her mother. I don't think. Well, I haven't heard from her in a week, so I don't know what's up. But like, apparently, there's some big health thing, so she went out there, and we had to delay that one as well. And I'm like, and that was all within 1 week when all of this happened. I was like, that's crazy.
That is actually really wild. Someone else that Roddenberry was dealing with someone whose father just died. Of course, people die all the time. You know what I mean? But like to be in the epicenter of so many is a strange thing. That's so
It
weird.
and it's three consecutive episodes on the season 5 list. It's like I've hit a cursed part of the schedule or
Yes,
something.
you sure have. You sure have. Well, I hope I can break that curse for
Oh
you.
well,
So
you have already, but yeah, it was Spur of the Moment, Owl Creek, and Queen of the Nile. So
so
it
weird.
was very bizarre. So not again, not to be glib about that, but it's hard not to
No,
notice that, you know.
of course. No, I'm all for it. Like you have to, I get it. The world is interesting. But
Yes.
I am grateful for you thinking of me and hopefully we can get one more in before you're done.
Well, I
If it
keep moving on
works.
past this. After this we do the we're gonna do the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone.
Oh, okay, cool. I haven't watched any
So
of those. So
I've seen a few of them. I watched like maybe five, and then I was like, started this podcast. I was like, maybe I should wait because I think it is better for a first view and then talking about it. I guess not always, but
it all depends, right?
yeah.
It's like sometimes there's like insights you can have having watched it the first time, but yes, sometimes like your first blush at something is interesting too.
I mean, I mentioned mentioned Andrew earlier. He'll sometimes come on the show and he's seen the episode 20 times, but he didn't like watch it like for the podcast because he doesn't need to. Um,
But it
I
changes your perspective when you're looking at it from a critical perspective,
right. When you're guests, you can do that. Like, there's a lot of movies where we just did Mulholland Drive because David Lynch died, but
Oh,
I had
sure.
already done. I did a David Lynch marathon like last fall, so I had just watched Mulholland Drive, and I was like, "Do I watch it again?" Yeah, I do. So like tomorrow we're doing The Dark Knight Returns. I'm like, I've seen that movie 5 times, but I'll give it another view because
That's
if
the
you're the
goal. That's what you got to
host
do.
chair, that's what you got to do. Okay, I'll say goodbye to the Patreon folks and hit the record